Thriving Thursday. I'm back. I'm so excited to be back just after having had our baby. And I'm here with Mark Johnston, our head marriage coach. I guess you're on this side. I should do that. The camera's like mirrored. It was weird here. So yeah, here with Mark Johnston. I'm a little sleep deprived, but I'm excited to be here. And just as a little note, my baby's here sleeping on the bed beside me. So if she wakes up, I will be leaving Mark to fend for himself, but he's quite capable of doing that. So just so you guys know, yeah, we're excited to be back and grateful to be here. So we had a couple messages in the group about a specific topic of if separating from your spouse would be a good idea to kind of wake them up, give them a reality check, get them to recognize that your needs aren't being met in the relationship in an effort to try to draw them back to you. And so we're going to focus on that specifically. So Mark, initial thoughts on this. Is separating ever going to be like a really good wake-up call to try to get your spouse to come back and work on the relationship with you?
No. I tend to categorize things like this. I call these things like mind games. Like, okay, if I play hard to get, if I show my spouse maybe I don't need them anymore, or doing things like this. Is that going to make them want me more? If I'm that mysterious, whatever. These are mind games, and maybe things like that work on the surface level. Maybe they worked when you were kids or something. But if you want a good, healthy, stable relationship, this is absolutely the wrong way to go with this. This is, you're looking for first reaction, first comment. That's what it is. Do not play mind games.
Hitting it strong right out the bat. I love it. No, that's really good. Yeah, and it's kind of that idea of reverse psychology that, if I take something away from you, you're going to want it more. If I'm not in the picture, you're going to want me more. However, the reality is that we've seen when couples separate, only more damage is done. Correct?
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
I'll tell you though, there are some circumstances where separation is, I wouldn't say a good idea, but an okay idea. It serves a very specific purpose, and it's not the purpose that this comment was aiming for. Now, the purpose for separation, for creating space in any sort of relationship, the only reason it would do any sort of good is if it's to cut off any sources of pain. If there's like a huge amount of volatility, and just every time you're coming together there's clashes and screaming and yelling, that's not a good environment to heal. And so sometimes having a little space might be good in those situations. But if you're looking for connection, you don't create connection by creating disconnection, by pulling further apart. That my big concern there is, with any action or with anything that people say in a marriage, is what is the underlying message? How is it very likely to be received by a partner? And very much if you say, okay, let's try separation, how is the partner going to view that? They're going to see, it's very likely that they're going to receive certain messages. Maybe that you don't want them anymore. Maybe that they're not valued. Maybe you don't like being around them. Maybe that you're considering divorce. And none of these things are really conducive to a thriving, happy marriage. You don't want your spouse thinking along those lines. The only reason that they might have a surge of effort to get you back is if they then become scared that they're going to lose you, which is not necessarily the ideal, what you want.
Absolutely. So Jerome here just said a really good question, and hello, Christine and everyone else watching. So glad to be back. Yay. I feel like I'm back in the land of the living, back with my thriving family. So Jerome here asks, what kind of time should you give in a separation? So here we're talking about, there are some instances where it's healthy to have a separation, and Mark kind of clarified exactly what those were. And it's not with this mind game kind of thing going on. So Mark, in an instance where it's healthier for the relationship to have some kind of separation, what would your answer be?
The only time, like I said, there's always very specific circumstances, but if you're looking at a time frame, that's probably the wrong idea. There's not going to be a specific time frame. It's the important part is if you are doing a separation, is what kind of steps are you taking to solve the problems that are necessitating the separation. For instance, like I said, if there's a huge amount of volatility and you decide, okay, we're going to take a little time apart, what steps are you taking to solve that problem, and how do you get there? It's whether that takes a month or 2 months or more. Is there progress? Are you working towards the solution? Is the better question. And I think when you come back together, I think as soon as you can come back together, the better. I don't think that it's a good situation to be separated. I don't think that's a healthy situation. It does not create connection at all. So as soon as you can get back together without there being huge blow-ups and huge problems and lots of anger and sadness, then that's when you should end the separation.
That is brilliant. And one thing that's really important that Mark just illustrated here is that it has to be forward moving. It needs to be healing. It needs to be productive. So in any decision that you make in your relationship, when you're working on these things, you need to ask yourself, what effect is this going to have? Is it going to bring us closer together, or is it going to bring us further apart? So sometimes that space is that healing step that needs to happen. Oh, and there's my baby. And sometimes it only leads to that further disconnection. So I'm going to go step aside real quick. Mark,
sure.
go ahead.
No, that's fine. So the idea here, or the problem that I see a lot of times when people do separate, is that they separate, yes, to end some problems, but without any real plan or effort to do anything. And what I see in these sort of situations is the separation is meant more as an escape, not as a way to solve a problem. And that is my concern with the vast majority of separations, is that it escapes problems, but it doesn't solve anything. And so because of that, the marriage keeps the momentum that it was going in, having these problems, and it will continue going that way unless something is done about it.
Absolutely. So, here's a sneak peek baby, because I want to show everyone off. I want to show her off to everyone. This is Ellie. And in the future, I want to share some really cool things that have happened as far as some miracles that we've witnessed in our lives, and some of the mindset work that has helped us get through some amazing challenges. This is another miracle child. So anyway, that's for a future date. We'll get to that another time. One thing I wanted to touch on, Mark, was understanding what's really going on and underlying on that emotional level here, is that obviously this is coming from a place of frustration and a place of pain. And that these people in this kind of circumstance, they have been working really, really hard for a long time, and they're not seeing the results that they want from their partner, right? They're not getting positive feedback. They're not getting acknowledgement for the changes that they've been working hard to make. And they're just kind of left wondering, what else is there for me to do? So understanding that, that's kind of what's going on an underlying level. And there's a lot of compassion for that, right? That you may have been working on things for a really long time. Your spouse may not be changing. They may not be recognizing it. They may be apathetic to the relationship. And so there's a right way to get those positive responses from them. And then there's a wrong way, right?
Yes.
So
the word you used there, which was key, was there's apathy. The spouse is apathetic towards change in the relationship. I see this in some close friends of mine. There's people that I know that are struggling in their relationships, and the very similar circumstance. They feel like they've been working for a long time, and they're just not seeing anything from their spouse. And right there, it's this apathy. And so the cause of this apathy, if we have to really boil it right down, is that the relationship isn't rewarding in some way to one of the partners. Now, this might be almost in some ways offensive, because here we have someone saying, I've been working so hard, I've been doing all these things, how is it not rewarding for my husband or wife. And, are you telling me that I have to do more? No, I'm not saying that. You might be doing all the work, but what I will say is that it's not touching on the right things, the right needs. I imagine even though you're doing all this work, I bet they still have complaints, which most any relationship is going to do. What I typically see happening is that you're working on the people who are working so hard are working on the things that they think need to be worked on, without there being a lot of communication, without there being a lot of open sharing of concerns. And so very much the reason why you're not seeing the investment from your spouse is because at current levels, at the current situation, it's just not that rewarding. People invest their time and they invest their energy into relationships and into things that are rewarding and are valuable to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. Hi, DJ. DJ. Good to see you on here too. So if you want to know how to do that and how to understand what those needs are that your spouse has, how to understand what their issues are, what's causing them to be apathetic, to not recognize the positive changes that you are making, then you need to reach out and we can give you specific solutions to that. So if you're feeling like that is your situation, then let us know and we can help give you advice and solutions to that.
It could be because it might not just be the fact that you're not doing things right or that you're not doing enough. It's usually not the case. There could be, for instance, situations where your spouse is not recognizing your efforts for one reason or another, or the expectations are mismatched, or it could be that the definition of what caring and loving actions are mismatched. And in all these situations, in all these cases, there are things to do about it. But we get to a point where we really have to delve into an individual case and figure out what the individual problems are to give individual solutions. And it's harder to give these broad solutions to, when we come to this point right here.
Absolutely. So I want to wrap this up with just a little analogy, a story from my own personal life. And if you have any more specific questions about this, then go ahead and let us know. So several years ago, goodness, way too long ago, actually, I was going to school in Hawaii, and I loved being in Hawaii. I loved the weather. I loved the beach. I loved the sand. I don't know if I did a lot of studying, but it was a lot of fun. And we would go out at night with the Polynesians, the local Polynesians there, and have these campfires at night on the beach and have just a great time. Well, one night, me and some of my friends, mostly some guys, decided that we would take some of these floaties out. And it was just a beautiful night. It was obviously gorgeous and warm, and the stars were out. So we got these floaties, kind of like those bed kind that you lay on the pool. And we got past the reef, past the waves, and we were just lounging out there on the ocean in the middle of the night, enjoying talking and just having a great time. We didn't realize how long we had been out there until all of a sudden we look up and there is this huge, giant ship, not just a boat, not just like a fishing boat, but there was this massive ship, like with the huge smokestacks and stuff. And we were terribly close to it, alarmingly close, and it was getting closer to us. And so we looked up because we had just been looking up at the stars and talking, and realized that we had drifted incredibly far from the shore that we thought we were right by. And we had been taken out by a current, and the shore that we had left, like we saw the little lighthouse that was close to it, was now far in the distance, and we were far off angle from it. And then, to our further alarm, the sun started to come up. And something in my brain said, oh, don't sharks feed at sunrise? And so I turned to my companions. I'm like, we better get back like now, because I think a shark's going to eat us. So we made this mad dash back to shore, but it took forever because we were fighting against the current. And me being the stronger swimmer, I beat the guys. I got there first. And then had to go back and decided I would be compassionate and help my companions. I didn't want to get eaten by a shark, but then I realized I didn't want them to get eaten by a shark too. The analogy here is that sometimes we get into these problems in our relationship, and sometimes it's a slow build, right, over the years. I think we can all identify with that. We let things slide over time, and we don't recognize that we're heading into more dangerous waters. And all of a sudden, when we look at where we're at, we have a wake-up call, and we recognize that we're not in a situation that we wanted to be in. And maybe we didn't recognize it for a while, but all of a sudden, wow, we realize this is not where I want to be in my marriage. This is not where I want to be in my life. And we start to panic. Okay. And I feel like what decisions we make in those moments are crucial. And you can never make a fear-based decision to forwardly move your life and to forwardly move your marriage. So analogy here is that, like, if your marriage was me on that floaty way out in the ocean, it'd be like abandoning your floaty, abandoning your companion, and heading further out to sea. That's how serious I feel like it is to make a fear-based decision like that, to separate. Because like Mark said, you can't build connection with disconnection. It's only going to create further separation between what you really want, which is the safety and comfort of shore, which is that close, warm, happy connection with your spouse. You have that end goal in mind, but the means is actually just going to push you further out to sea. And that's not where you want to be. So if you need a little bit of space for a healthy, productive, forward-moving reason, that's fine. And that's something that a professional or someone can help you identify exactly what that plan needs to be and what that looks like for you in your situation. So make decisions that are going to move you closer to what you want, always. Always make sure that it is bringing that healing and that close connection that you really want. There. Bam. Can I get an amen? That's my big spiel.
No,
I hope that
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Mark. Any final comments that you guys have? And thanks for everyone watching.
I don't have. I think you wrapped it up quite nicely there. As always, we'll pay attention to the comments here and see if we can answer any questions. Let us know how we can help, and if you have something big, let us know so that we can, maybe address it in a future live stream.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to say one thing here with C just said, but when you're putting in all the effort, it's exhausting. Okay. Back to my analogy. It was exhausting to swim to shore, but it got me where I wanted to be. And like Mark said, it's not that you necessarily have to put in more work. That's not the point. It's that you need to put in the right work that's actually meeting your partner's needs, that's actually going to build that connection. Because if you feel like you're doing all that work, you're swimming against a current instead of working with the current. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's learning how to do things in the right way. And so it's not necessarily doing more work, it's doing the right kind of work. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
if I had to give something specific, I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if I had to give something specific, like, it's really going to depend on the situation. But, sometimes I see that people are working towards different goals. Like one person is really trying to build more connection, and the other person is trying to build more commitment. And so when sometimes those different goals causes some apathy and some friction. It might be that the person is really focused in on providing for the family and making sure the kids' needs are met. And so when you try to introduce marital stuff, there's that friction or that apathy. But there are ways of aligning yourself with goals and moving, getting rid of this apathy, eliminating it, so that you don't have to be doing all the work. We just have to apply your efforts to the right area.
Absolutely. And doing the right work, like Mark just mentioned, is going to give you an incredible sense of momentum when you've been working at this for a really long time and you're not getting the results and the connection that you want from your spouse. When you start to see those sparks come back, that is incredibly invigorating for both you and your spouse. And the exhaustion of everything that you've been doing, like that hamster in the wheel or me swimming against the current, it's gone because you're able to move forward quickly, and it's a beautiful thing. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you, Mark, for your wisdom and insights today. And thank you, Thriving Marriage Family. We will see you next week.
All right. See you, everyone.